I've gone ahead and made a couple of small changes to our airport hubs table.
This video is brought to you by ObbyPies Academy.
The data is essentially the same, but I repeated American once for United since they both have hubs there, and Dallas, I went ahead, is still on two lines with separate airports at Dallas, Love, and DFW. So I've also alphabetized it by city, but that doesn't really matter. Now, when we have repeated data, we can create a more complex table structure. We could actually make one box out of these two Chicago boxes. So essentially, we'd have this row span two rows. So what I'm going to do here in the first instance of Chicago, I'm going to say row span is 2. And then I'm going to take out Chicago in the second row. Let's go ahead and save and refresh, and that should become more obvious. So there you go. So now that Chicago right here spans 2 rows. It spans the O'Hare row with American and the O'Hare row with United. We could do the same thing with Dallas. Again, row span equals 2. And then take out the corresponding row right there. So if I save and refresh, now notice O'Hare could also span 2 rows. So there I'm using the middle element, right? We have O'Hare here and here. So I'm going to add again my row span. It doesn't have to be 2 rows. It could be 3 rows or 4 rows, depending on your data and your table. And then let's take it out here. So it looks like this row only has 1 data point, right? This row that starts on line 17. But actually, because of the row spans, it's still going to have 3 data points. Now, we could also do this using columns. So remember how I couldn't remember the name for the Atlanta airport? Let's just say that it's Atlanta, Atlanta, just for the sake of argument here. So now we have repeated data here. So now I'm going to do what's called a column span and have this span 2 columns. So here in the first instance of Atlanta, I'm going to use col span, and I'm going to set that to 2. And then, of course, be sure to erase that second instance. And it makes the code more confusing, but in certain instances, this table could be preferable for your actual users. Now note that I have this border equals 1 attribute turned on, so I have those ugly HTML borders. I'm going to turn those off, and you'll see the result. Here's a little bit more confusing. But don't worry, the borders can be turned back on using CSS and neatened up. Matter of fact, we're going to do a lot of things with tables to make them more interesting to look at with color, etc. in the very next video. In the meantime, you've seen col span and row span and how they can be used to create more complex table data. So there you go, col span and row span in an HTML5 table.